Welcome to season 4. We're back in front of you, talking, I won't say nonsense, but talking about things we don't know anything about, having a bit of tipple with friends at the end of every week. But this week, we're going to kick off the season in a very special venue with a special guest. Well, before we get to a special guest, you guys remember George. He's a guest, but not very special. Rufaro is not with us this week. He's in East Africa. Maybe he'll come back with the secret of Tinashe's tea, and he might tell us what's so interesting about East Africa. But our special guest today, Nyati, Philip Mataranyika, you're hosting us in your rural home. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ungwe.
We've got a lot of questions about the place and why it's so beautiful and what's going on here. But maybe before we get to that, what are we drinking?
Okay, so Philip and I are actually going to have our cinnamon apple spice tea. He tells me he grows Zumbani shrubs here, so he will thoroughly enjoy this one. And the aroma is just great. It's fantastic. And in this environment, it's excellent. I don't know about you guys, but that's what we're going to have.
Well, George and I have come with empty glasses.
Yes, Chatibwege. Iyi ndio hari yenyu. Isusu tiriwa maungwe. So nyaya zvirangu ndio yatinogona maningi. Munoziya kana dzimwe nguva chikafu chida kudyiwa chinogona kutonhora vanhu vachiomberana chete. Nyaya inogona kupera vanhu vachingomberana chete. So tati beta tikupei hari yenyu. Totenda nekuti
Nyati. Zvachaitirwa there.
Zvaitwa zvinotendwa.
And you can trust George to go straight into it. Oh, this is beautiful, eh?
Yeah,
Blue Label. Have we had one? I think we've had one on the show.
We've had one, but this looks very good.
Yeah, it looks like a limited edition design.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a good show.
Thank you very much.
But maybe while we opening that and participating, maybe you could tell us a little bit about where we are. Net?
Thank you. We are in Rukweza today, precisely at a place called Rujeko. This place is about 3 kilometers from my mother's house, going west. So a few years ago, the government decided to resettle people on a piece of land that used to have white farmers. So then I was one of the beneficiaries of this piece of land given to me by the government in 1998. But anyway, if I take a step back, for those who have been following some of the things that I write on my Facebook page under the Connecting the Dots, this place was occupied by my ancestors from 1600. So they lived here, and they became the traditional leaders in this place, Mambo Makoni. So around about 1890, Varungwagawea, as we all know, when the Land Tenure Act was then enacted, the people of my bloodline were moved out of here to make way for the white settlers, I think about 1940, 1945. So coming back here was pretty much like going back to my roots, because then this is where we always used to be. So immediately after independence in 1980, some of the white farmers that were here then abandoned the land. And then there were people that came, then settled. Then around about 1995, the government decided to get people settled properly. And in 1998, I became a beneficiary of this piece of land. So over the years, we've been working hard to make sure that we make it habitable for my family and
So
I.
is this a story that your father and your grandfather would tell you about this particular land?
It's not so much about my father or my grandfather, it's the whole clan.
The whole clan?
Because then...
I mean, why the attachment to the particular land?
It's a long story. When our progenitor or our great ancestor came from Chichiri in Tanzania, they came and settled here.
Okay.
Yeah. Then obviously there were other people, but from negotiations and discussions, they ended up becoming the traditional leaders. So we actually became the traditional leaders of this place as Makoni in 1625.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So then, obviously, from that time, there's been a line of successors from the original progenitor, whose name is Gunguo. Then there was Sabarawara. Then there were others, and right up to me.
I didn't actually realize you were a Makoni.
I am.
Okay, yeah. I mean, when you say that, Nyati Makoni, but I never put that together.
So Makoni family, I think around about 1800, they ended up with the 4 families that take turns to become Mambo Makoni. So the first one in Inonzi Yekwa Mskwati, the second one Yekwa Zendera, the third one Nyamanindi, the fourth one Nyakurukwa Omruko.
And which one are you?
I am in the second. This Zendera one.
Sorry. Zendera.
Yes. So right now, Mambo Makoni is a descendant of Zendera.
Oh, so you won't get a shot. You won't get a shot.
It could have been me, but obviously among the family meetings and discussions, we decided on who was going to be the current chief.
Makoni.
And then my brother Kogin Kwasira is Mambo Makoni, but we are the same family.
Okay.
Yeah. So the agreement was, obviously we have one from their family, then we have another one who comes Nyakurukwa, and another one comes Nyamanindi. Then it goes back to Mskwati, maybe another 100 years.
All right.
When it comes back, this time around, 100, 120 years from now, it's going to be a Mataranyika.
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
Well, you can encourage it to come sooner, can't
you? You have to dabble in witchcraft, and that wouldn't be a good idea. So we just.
Why is this history important, or how important is history to who you are as a person?
I think it's very important for everybody to understand who they are, because trees don't grow from the sky; they grow from the roots.
From the ground, yeah.
So the moment you know who you are from where it starts as far back as you can, it's going to be easy to come out of the ground and then rise.
So in other words, you've grown up thinking of yourself as a king.
Obviously, I'm not thinking myself of as a king. I am.
Oh, right. And do you think that has influenced your entrepreneurial journey?
I don't think being a king and being an entrepreneur are the same. I think it's obviously because obviously there are so many of us who belong to the Makoni family, and obviously there are not many of us who are entrepreneurs. It's something that possibly you can make a decision about. I've heard the question from many people asked that is entrepreneurs made or born? So obviously I don't have an answer that is going to be satisfactory to everyone. But my thinking is everything that we do is a result of the decisions we make. You make a decision to become an entrepreneur, you make the decision to become a doctor, make the decision to become a lawyer. It's pretty much the decision that you make. And not only that you make the decision, you then follow through on whatever it is that is required to make you a doctor. Obviously, if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to school, study the correct subjects, and then go to medical school and then become a doctor.
But what about those who make the decision and fail attempt after attempt?
Okay, making the decision is one side, but you can decide to want to play soccer, and you are not going to put the time in terms of training, and sometimes you may not have the talent. But I think everybody can become an entrepreneur, unlike soccer where you have to be 11 players in a field, because then some other people are going to make a decision whether you are going to play in the team of 11 or not. But in terms of being an entrepreneur, the space is so big that you can do anything what it is that you want.
I suppose the question is, some people have the talent for it and some don't. And sometimes, based on your bloodline or your chieftainship, some people, these are hunters, and then these are farmers, and these are ironsmiths. What's your take on that?
Look, I think the issue about entrepreneurship is I still maintain the fact that it's pretty much about your decision making.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything else can support the decision that you have made.
All right.
Yeah. For instance, you decide to be somebody who's going to be vending tomatoes. So, and if that is your line of entrepreneurship that you would have chosen, you have to go backwards to understand where you're going to get the tomatoes from. Are you going to farm them? Are you going to buy them from someone? You need to now know whether there's a glut on the market, there's a shortage of tomatoes, and so on. So you have to be able to understand what it is that affects the area of entrepreneurship that you would then have chosen.
Okay.
So it's not just making the decision, it's also now following through
with the decision
on the things that are required.
But what about the role of luck? I mean, I'll tell you an interesting anecdote that happened last week in my office. One of our staff members has been writing an international exam for the last 3 years and failing. And this week he got a letter from the International Examining Board, a reputable examining board. They said, sorry, we've re-looked at our results from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we made a mistake. You passed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So doesn't fate or luck have a role to play in where we end up? This guy, and he's been passed over for promotion twice because he didn't have that qualification.
Very, very good point, George. You see, luck is not going to come if you don't have the preparedness.
Yeah.
You have to put in the effort. So in this case, this guy wrote exams 3 times. There was a record that he wrote the exams. And somebody did their job and went back to the record of the exams that he had written. So what is it that he qualified for?
Well, okay, now he has to write more exams. But if he had,
okay, for that part that
if he had passed 3 years ago, by now, he would have been a very senior person in corporate Zimbabwe. But he was passed over because he didn't have the qualification.
Yeah, but my question is, what is it that he was told that he had passed for the 3 years that he has written? What is it that he...
It's an accounting exam.
Okay. So assuming he was writing the final qualifying exam, okay, and he now becomes a chartered accountant. I'm just imagining Philip Mataranyika wants to be a chartered accountant. That examining board is never going to write me a letter to say, Philip, we know you want to be a chartered accountant.
If you haven't written the exam.
So come in, let's give you a certificate. They gave this guy the certificate, assuming it was the final qualifying exam. Because he actually attempted, he wrote,
He's written.
and this guy then said, we made a mistake. They made a mistake, he wrote and passed. And then they corrected their mistake.
So the important thing is he actually wrote.
The important thing is he made a decision to become a chartered accountant. And then he started studying for for the qualification. And he wrote exams. Unfortunately, somebody decided somewhere that his effort was not adequate. And then on review, they said his adequate was not only adequate, he actually passed.
Yeah. So can I draw you back a bit? Because you said it's about making a decision. And this is something that I think I grapple with and a lot of people grapple with. It's like jumping into a pool, and let's call it a river.
Yeah.
And you have 4 boys, and they're standing at the riverbed, and they're deciding whether to jump or not. Some jump, and some don't.
Yeah.
What is it that makes people jump into entrepreneurship? Because it's uncertain. There's a lot of uncertainty around it. You didn't know you were going to be successful, but you jumped nonetheless. Why do some people jump and some people don't?
I think that question should be asked the first person who become an entrepreneur. The moment we got to know that there's this word called entrepreneur, and we pointed at someone and said, this is the guy who is an entrepreneur. That is the guy that we should have asked.
Because everyone else is just following.
You get what I'm saying? So,
okay.
Because that guy became successful, and there's been so many other people that became successful. For some of us, we said, but there's been thousands of entrepreneurs that
people were jumping. So,
so I'm not making history by jumping. I'm just following what the other guys have done before me.
Okay.
You know, before we came on camera, you were telling us about some of your more prominent, shall we say, fellow villagers in this area. Maybe you might want to name some of them.
Yes. Obviously, you see, when I was growing up, there were people that I looked up to. A person like your guest last week, Dr. Solomon Grama Tundu. I looked up to him. He comes not very far from here, about 20 km from here. Next to his village is that of my very good friend Farai Rodzi. Is just about maybe 100 meters from where Solomon is. Then down the road, 7 kilometers from here, there's Tim Chiganzi. Behind me here, you know the bishop attendee, not attendee, Bishop Gandia actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Bishop Gandia comes from here.
Is he also a Makoni?
No, he's a Anzu. They are of the Beta Totem. But just behind this hill, that's where Bishop Gandia comes from. And then my neighbor right here is Dr. Kufa, the ophthalmologist. He's right here. Then there's quite a number of people that come from this village that obviously those that were older than me became the models, the people that we wanted to model our lives along.
So what do you think there's something, look, in my village, I can't rattle off a list like that. So is there something special about this area? Is there something special about
the water, the air,
or the culture?
Very good question, George. I think you know there are enablers, there are economic enablers in places. So we were lucky in that. Obviously, at some point immediately after we got colonized, we had schools. We had St. Augustine's. We had Mtambara, and a lot of our family, or the families around here, aspired to be educated. So they send their kids to the schools around here. So you find a good number of the people that I was talking about went to some of those schools. Number one. Number two, we are in a place where there was development. Maybe in the 60s. What development? There's the road. Yeah, this road is Nyazura to Doroa. Then they discovered a mineral there at Doroa, phosphate. Yeah. Then there's a railway line, Mutare to Harare. So obviously, those developments became enablers, because then there was the economic activity that was taking place in Doroa. Then obviously, when they were mining the phosphate, they would then transport it from there onto Nyazura. It helped to get people to have some kind of enlightenment. And then there were people that started working in Mutare, then others that got jobs to work in Harare. And then they always then came back here to support their families. And once they got enlightened in terms of what it is that could happen in Harare, in Mutare, they wanted that for their families. And then they started sending their kids to school. Because we feel a sense of belonging. You actually find that most of the guys that I spoke about, Farah was the team, they've come back to build a nice house in their village because they come here often. So obviously, when they were building those houses, the next thing they thought about was to put electricity. And then development continued to.
But I would like to challenge you a little bit more on that, because what George has said is, and when we're driving here, it's not like the whole place is prosperous. You know, you find a place like this, and then next to it is still a little hut. So you do have these sprouts of really, you know, good guys who've come out, but you still have the majority are still impoverished. How do you explain that? That it's only a few people and not the entire community that then rose.
You know, I was watching. You know, the Americans sent a space shuttle to space.
Mm-hmm.
They are not going to be 330 million Americans. There's only going to be a few people that are going to be on the space shuttle. But I think what we have to do, which is what I'm trying to do, is to say, okay, I went to Harare. I saw a space shuttle. I know it can go to space. But I'm not going to choose to want to go onto that space shuttle by myself. So we want to make sure that we got as many people that get to come close to the space shuttle and possibly fly in the space shuttle. So we are coming back here to catalyze development.
Okay.
So that
so that explains the reason why you're all coming back. Okay.
Exactly, because
But I mean, coming back to the original question, what I'm hearing though, Tinashe, and I don't know if you've thought of it in these terms, Nyat, is it's actually about ideas. Because everything he's talking about, it's the schools which brought new ideas, it's the links to big cities, the influx of, I presume, migrants and investors when Doroa was created. Ideas came. And when you have ideas, people aspire.
But why is it some people lurched onto it and some people didn't?
Well, as he says, there are poor people in America. But certainly this is a more prosperous
part of the country
than other rural areas. And I put it to you, and I'd like to hear your response, that if we're going to take the whole country forward, we need a multiplicity of ideas.
So, very fundamental, George, the point that you raise about ideas. I've always been a believer in going back to my roots. And recently I heard the president speak about his favorite statement these days, you know. So I'm a firm believer in that. And I think if we have more people that believe in that statement, and we are not waiting for someone or some people to come and develop this country. And this country, obviously, is not going to develop as a whole. It's going to develop in pockets. Like you rightly point to say, this place has a certain level of development. So the more development we bring to this place, you guys have come here, you've seen the development. You obviously want this in your place. So the more we can have the places of development that people can look at and say, but this has been done here, we can do it in our place as well. Like I said, when Tinashe was asking me about how do you jump in the river to start swimming when you think you could drown, and I said the first person who got into the river and showed us that you can swim is the person you must ask why they jumped into the river, or the person who started being an entrepreneur is the person we must ask what it is that was going through his mind. Was he mad? What was he smoking? All of us,
We're just following.
all of us are just followers. So obviously, you're going to ask me, how did I come about to have this kind of development? I'm a follower. I didn't start this thing. Somebody else did. I went to some village and I saw the development. I said, "Nyika inova kwa niwe niwayo." And I said, so I'm going back in Dono. So this is why I'm here. I mean, I stay here most of the time when I'm in Zim. And I want to be comfortable here. And more than being comfortable myself, I think the people around me must also be comfortable. And then development is going to be for everyone, and then everybody's happy. So that's what we want to do, and I think we are on course to be doing that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So, just to move a little bit further, do you think that your kids have picked up the same knowledge, ideas that you have from your ancestors? Is this thing stopping with you, or is this thing going to run through the ages?
Very difficult question, Tinashe. Very, very difficult question. So, I'm an insurance man. I've been an insurance man all my life.
I don't think you are. I think you once were an insurance man.
So, when I was selling insurance policies, there was a group of people I sold insurance policies to, which believed that they were not going to take a long-term life policy, even when they had a wife and children. Their reasoning was, if I drop dead and there's so much money, there's going to be another man in this house enjoying
my labor.
You get what I'm saying? So then the others were saying, you know what? I may have problems fending for my family, but the day I die and I'm not going to be able to fend for them, I must be able to replace myself, the labor, the ability to give them bread every day by my death. So a lump sum paid out to my family will help them live by, and possibly just miss me in terms of my presence, but they won't miss my financial support. So I'm more on the side of the guy who says, I want to make sure that whatever it is happens to me, my children and my family are going to be able to carry it through. But those two men, one didn't know whether his wife was going to get married the following day, leaving her 300,000 or 3 million. The other one didn't care whether the wife is going to get married, but he knew that his role was to provide for them, whether he's alive or he's dead.
Not. Okay.
So I don't want to prescribe to my children what it is that they're going to do. After all, I'm not there. I won't be able to see. So I don't want to worry about, if I'm not going to worry about a wife getting married after my death, I'm not going to worry about my children, whatever it is that they're going to do after my death.
But I think you've avoided Tinashe's question.
Yeah, you
Because
have.
Tinashe's question was, do you think they've caught it?
Exactly. I think I've answered it.
Because he's saying he doesn't care.
Because you see, I will do what I can to inculcate in them the values that have been passed on to me by my father, my grandfather, and everybody else. But the choice to carry through those values is not mine.
I'll push back a bit. If you look at, we looked at the Americans, we look at the Europeans, you look at the Rothschilds, you look at JP Morgan, you look at all this, these are families, right? maybe not necessarily families, but relatives, dynasties, right? It has to go through a dynasty. Otherwise, the passion, just like how you started by saying, you know what, my ancestors, 400, 500 years, these were their ideas. And all I'm just doing is carrying through.
No, in fact, he said something more incisive than that.
Mhm.
He says, I don't think of myself as a king.
I am a king.
Because
So-
you're part of the Makoni dynasty.
I'm part of that chieftainship.
Mhm.
Yes, I am.
But now you're sort of the responsibility. It seems like your ancestors had a responsibility in you believing that you are a king.
Yeah.
And now you're telling us you're an insurance man.
Being a king, you see, whether I am competent or I'm not, it's a birthright.
Okay.
It's a birthright. You could never come here and then it doesn't matter how bright or sharp you are, people would never then say Tinashe is now the chief Makoni. It will never happen.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a difference between entrepreneurship and bloodline.
Mm.
So I've seen a lot of our Zimbabweans judge themselves very, very harshly in terms of the business. In terms of the chieftainship, we've done very well in our case, 1600 to now, and we still have the chieftainship. Okay, America became independent in 1776.
America is younger than your chieftainship.
It is.
Mm.
They are younger than our chieftainship. But you see, I've heard a lot of people judge themselves harshly and say, you know what, we haven't got a business that is survived 40 years or 60 years.
Mm.
Okay. As a country, we are in our infants. In our infants, we haven't even started crawling or walking.
Mm.
We are infants.
Mm.
So tell me one company that you know that was founded in 1776 in America that survives to this day.
Yeah.
So you are going to look at companies in America that are in existence. You possibly will find 1850.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So 1850 subtract 1776. That's a good 74 years. We are not 50 years into independence.
But why do we draw this artificial line at independence? I prefer to talk about 1896.
Or before, because he doesn't recognize
Yeah, 'cause he's talking about
1896.
1690.
Yeah.
He's talking about
So
1610. Yeah.
if you want us to go on that rabbit hole, so we were hunting and gathering. So 1890 is important for us. Okay, the people that went to America in 1776 or 1600, they were people that were coming from business families.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
So it was ingrained in them. This business thing was ingrained in them. So it was like we are going to America because the space is closed for us to do business. They were tradespeople.
That's true.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm.
So our people in 1890, we were just hunting. If you go up there, I was showing George the other day, there are paintings where they were hunting the animals they were hunting.
Mm.
But the economic situation changed from hunting and from everything else when the white people came in 1890. So we had to learn. Then these people didn't come to teach us in 1890. They came to enslave us.
Mm.
So, and then we were enslaved from 1890, and it got worse in the 1900s. You get what I'm saying? It got worse to the point where people started thinking we can fight and then become independent. So to start in 1890, because you see, the businesses that were there before 1980 were pretty much your sole trader businesses. We didn't have many black-owned, incorporated, private entity businesses.
No, but Nyati, when you then take that angle, then I go with Tinashe and say, no, we must go further back there.
Okay.
Because if you take that view, then I'll say, but under Mutapa, we had state-sponsored capitalism.
Not even state-sponsored, but real capitalism.
Yeah,
Tradesmen.
yeah, but
Old.
the thing is,
But the empire itself was capitalist.
yeah.
Yeah, the empire was
Yeah.
a capitalist state.
Okay, let me tell you what happened when my our patriarch, our progenitor, what happened for him to come over here.
Okay.
They were in Chichiri in Tanzania, and you see Tanzania has got a seashore.
Yeah, a port. Yeah.
So they were already trading with the Arabs,
Yes.
and they were trading in
Gold, slaves,
everything,
ivory.
ivory, and that kind of thing. So they had a dispute about the quotas that they were trading, and instead of fighting to death, our patriarch decided to move to look for other places to settle in, and then he walked all the way from Tanzania to here. And when they got here, remember, 1497, the discovery of the Cape of Good Hope.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you come back, you see the Portuguese were already now trading. In fact, before the Portuguese were trading with the Arabs.
Yes.
And this you can, if you go into the caves there, you see the animals they were trading. They're actually drawn in there.
All right.
There are paintings in there. So I'm sure after trading those animals, they would possibly the guy would come back and say, "Today we did this," and then he
recorded
it, and So, but that wasn't the work of a product that was produced. It wasn't like a cell phone. It wasn't like the work of your mind to say, I've made a pair of glasses, or I've made a camera. It was basically trade of natural resources.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but over time, those natural resources, when the government will come and say, you can't trade in ivory, it's a banned substance. But that's what you've done for 400 years.
400 years.
But I'll still challenge you on that, right? I get the point you're making, but I think it's unfair because let's go back to the Mutapa Empire. Let's go back to Great Zimbabwe. They situated the capital where they did. It's believed really to extract taxes. This was a tertiary economy. They let the Arabs come in, trade, and then on their way out, we said, where's our cut? Okay, international economic term would be rent-seeking, but this was tertiary level.
It was
activity.
pretty advanced.
Yeah, but you see, the moment you don't advance to the point where you can defend your trading and you defend your wives, you defend your children,
Then that's true.
and somebody comes and then he takes over, they obliterate what it is that you were doing in the past, and they change the narrative. So you are literally relearning. And usually when you are colonized or when you are subjugated, they try as much as is possible to obliterate whatever it is that you knew. And you look at the guys who became slaves. They didn't. If you were a George Noemba, they said you were George Brown. So they gave you a different name, and then
that's it.
You get what I'm saying? Your identities. Remember, you asked me earlier on about why it is important for us to know our roots, which is why I go back to 1600, and I even go back to the time before 1600 when Gungo was coming from Chichiri. It's important for me to know. If there was any trade that was happening that time, if I get to know it, it inspires me to carry through and go forward. Yeah.
So just to move away from this,
I was enjoying this rabbit hole.
yeah. We need to get ourselves out
I
of
think
the rabbit
you're
hole.
practicing to take over my job now.
No, I need another rabbit hole. Tell me about the businessman who inspire you. People you watch, you look, and you're like, you know what? I like what they're doing, and it inspires me.
I get inspired by everyone. I think if your question is to say, who is the entrepreneur that inspires me in terms of how much money they've made?
In terms of what matters to you.
What matters, whatever matters.
What matters to me is how unique every entrepreneur's story is. So I learn from everyone. I learn from
Yeah, give us some names.
A
That's
vendor
what-
who is selling tomatoes. Let me tell you what happened today. So George calls, he says, we have arrived and we're in Nyazura. So I saw these two little girls selling tomatoes by the roadside. So I asked them what it was they were doing, and they told me they were selling tomatoes. And I said, have you sold any tomatoes? They said, we were told that there's a glut of tomatoes. So we've been here the whole day. We haven't sold any tomato. And I said, how many packets do you have? And then they said, we've got 6 packets each. So I had $10 in the car. So I gave them $10. And then they gave me 10 packets of tomatoes. I'm going to give you a packet each when you So then I said, so I've bought 10 packets and you guys had 12 packets, the two of you. So I've bought 5 each. So you're taking back home 1 packet. So you've done a good job. So for me, it's like this whether these are entrepreneurs or the family is entrepreneurs, but the thought that they are not going to sit by the corner and beg for $5
is inspirational.
it inspired me. And I was just thinking that, you know, there are people who've got $100,000 in their pocket and they don't know what to do with it. And this guy is, the whole family is waiting for the $5 or $2 that's coming from the tomato sales by these 2 girls. And their life is made because they've got $5. So that inspires me.
Oh, very interesting. And then on the same wavelength, does life have meaning to you? And I say this because of the nature of the business that you're in.
Very good question, Tinashe.
I'm being cheeky there.
At some point, I was writing about. I did some write-up I did about the 90 minutes of life. Yeah, so I was equating life to soccer. Yeah, so if you're trailing by 1 goal to 0, 90 minutes is very short. You want as much time to be added on so you can have a chance to equalize. When you are leading by 1 goal to 0, 90 minutes is very long. It's
too much.
You want the referee to blow the whistle immediately so you can image the winner. So is life. Now, for soccer, it's clearly stated that this game is going to have 90 minutes, sometimes 120, then there's a penalty shootout and so on and so on. But life is a little bit different in that your 90 minutes can come when you are an infant. Your 90 minutes can come when you are 20 years old. Your 90 minutes can come when you are 100 years old. And nobody can stop the whistle from being blown. It's over. So whether you played your 90 minutes as much as you wanted to play or you didn't, it's now up to you. If you contributed to the team winning, if you have, then you're going to be happy. If you haven't contributed to the team winning and the team loses, you're going to be unhappy. But it depends. If you're going to get a backhander, you will still be happy whether you lose. In fact, you're going to be happier when you lose.
Yeah.
So life is meaning in that I want to contribute as much as I can. Pretty much like dying empty. By the time of the 90 minutes, I want to be able to...
You've given it your best shot.
To drop dead and say, you know what?
I'm empty.
I'm empty. You get what I'm saying? So this is what I want to do. I want to die empty. And I'm hoping that there is more people out there who also want to die empty.
And how close to empty do you think you are?
I was empty when I was 20. Then I thought maybe I've emptied.
You dug
Then
deeper.
then I got 10 more years. Then I said, but I thought I was empty at 20. Then at 30, I thought I was empty. Then I still had more time. So the ref, unfortunately, continues to add
Extra time.
added time. So
Okay, talking about the minutes or the years. So the three of us, we're towards the end of our first half. If we're using the 90 imagery or metaphor, you're probably midway through, or okay, in the early part of the second.
not in the end.
Your advice to us?
Die empty.
Whenever it happens.
If you're gonna die at 20, so the problem is people think dying empty is dying at 100.
It's not a time issue.
Again, it's not a time issue. You don't know what your 90 minutes is.
Yeah.
So whatever it is that you're doing, give it your best shot. Die empty.
Because we always laugh. I mean, Tupac died at 27, but it achieved so much.
A lot more than
Jesus
us.
Christ.
Jesus
said
33?
33.
So he died empty at 27.
Bob Marley.
Bob
I was
Marley,
watching
33.
the news the other day. They've made the reggae, what do they call it? United Nations.
Special recognition, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a 30-something year old.
So if I take those individuals, part of dying early is because your purpose is very clear. So, your 90 minutes, there are people who don't know what game they're playing.
Yeah.
So if they die, then it feels like, wow. To die empty means you actually know which game you're playing and what your purpose in life is.
To die empty.
No, I mean, if you die early and you've emptied yourself, right? Like Jesus Christ, like Bob Marley, like
you
Tupac,
completed your purpose.
because you were very clear about what your purpose was. And I sort of get people who say, I want to empty myself. It means they sort of understand their purpose in life. Do you think it's something that you deliberated on your own? How did you come to actually understand that, okay, this is my purpose in life? Because everything that we're talking about, you've just encapsulated your purpose. How can others find their purpose? So that if they die at 24 or at 94, they feel empty, that they have accomplished their purpose.
That's a very profound question, Tinash. I think without being prescriptive, I think maybe that we are spending our time possibly focusing maybe on the wrong things. Yeah. So you see, how does a muscle grow?
Exercise.
It's exercised. How do you get your spiritual bearings? By practicing spiritual things. So how do you get your mind to grow? By exercising the mind. So maybe we are not spending a lot of time exercising the mind. So that George spoke about ideas. So we are not spending a lot of time developing and exercising the mind. When we do, we would then be able to focus and understand that this is 90 minutes. If you are going to be, it's like I said that the example of soccer is a little bit out, but it helps in terms of the timing. So obviously, if in terms of the match that you're going to play, the coach is going to decide 11 players and 11 players from the other side, 22 players. But the good thing about life is that we are all playing. But maybe people must understand that my 90 minutes is my 90 minutes. And how are you going to be able to get to that point? By having exposure to the things that develop the mind. And then you then be able to know that you've got your 90 minutes or you've got whatever sport it is that you're playing.
When we're driving here, this often I'd I was the oldest person in the car by far and away. There's people born in the
You
2000s.
think
that
your
are now on
90
the
minutes
crew.
is very close.
But we had this. We touched on a similar subject around thinking, reflection. But I feel as if I left them without any practical advice. So yes, I said pretty much the same. Think, spend time thinking, reflection.
Yeah.
But maybe do you want to give them, 4 or 5 practical tips on how you can tune into that zone?
Very, very difficult question, but maybe I can answer it in this way. You see, from a very early age, obviously, I grew up. If you follow my writings on my Facebook page, connecting the dots, I grew up in a broken family, and obviously, I had the issues to do with the confidence. I had issues to do with the self-worth and that kind of thing, because it seemed like the guys next door, all of them were better than me in a way, and I was, as you know, I'm short. I used to have a lot of. I used to have.
You're in good company.
I used to have a lot of nicknames, and I was bow-legged. My legs were like this, so I used to have a lot of nicknames. And each time my father changed jobs, we go to a different place. I would look forward to having a new breath of fresh air, because then the guys they don't know me, so I'm not gonna carry the baggage of these nicknames. But as soon as I got there, I got new ones, and possibly worse than the ones that I had. That's the first thing. The second part was I learned very early to look out for my siblings. And I understood that, because we didn't have much, we needed to look out for each other. So by being able to look out for my siblings, I was able then to expand the net to say, if I look after my sibling, but there's a cousin who is coming as well, and also as we were growing up, we brought up by different people. They showed me that they were able to care for me, put a little bit of a responsibility on my shoulders, to say, because these guys didn't have any reason to look after me, but they did. So I then said I will be able to look after others as well. So you can't look after others if you don't have the means. So obviously, as you start developing, you get the means, and your means, your circle of influence grows, and then you are able to share with more people. So for me, I want to be able to do so much for others, and I get a lot of satisfaction from that. So maybe you first have to develop yourself first to be able to look after yourself. When you're able to look after yourself, you are able to look after the guy next door, and then the other guy. So first of all, let's empower ourselves, and then you can empower the other people. Because if you are not empowered yourself, you are looking to the guy next door to empower you before you look to empowering someone. So I had the responsibilities very early in my life, and then obviously, because you now have the responsibility, because you take it as a commitment on your part. When you do, you must provide for it, and then you grow.
So just taking another segue, what does failure look like to you? And have you failed before, and how did you get over failure?
I'm not sure whether I've got an answer for that. But I think failure is when you fall and you remain on the ground. That's failure. Anything else that happens to you and you rise up and you carry on walking, it's not failure, it's just a temporal setback. So I think anybody who is still alive when they stumble, he has a chance to correct whatever it is that happened in the past. I have very little if any respect for people that commit suicide. That is total failure. It's irredeemable. Whether somebody was going to help you.
You don't believe in mental health issues?
Okay, that's a different story. You know, somebody is sick, they need help.
Or depression? Because a lot of men, you know that suicide rates, the highest in Zimbabwe is actually in the top 20 in the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is depression.
Yeah, it's an undeveloped mind. Let me tell you why. Okay, there's cases where there's mental health, which I accept because there are people who've got mental health. But the biggest problem to failure, which causes suicide, is denial.
Okay, explain that.
So somebody is caught in a compromising situation, and then they start thinking about what Tinashe is going to think about me. You get what I'm saying? You are living your life not for you. You are living your life because you are living in a glass house. Even when you are doing certain things, you are an accountant at a company. Everybody knows that you drive this car, you just recently built a new house and whatever it is. Then suddenly they discover that you're
embezzling.
You get what I'm saying? So then you are now thinking about Tinashe to say, Tinashe thought I had so much money. I was able to build a house. I was able to buy a car. I was able to do this. So you go into denial, not depression, but denial. So you are not able to face Tinashe. Then you take your life.
You guys are going down a rabbit hole. And Ranga is hopping up and down. I can smell the braai, which we've been promised. So perhaps we're going to take a pause here.
Yeah.
But I think this has been a
Riveting.
fantastic afternoon. I usually say don't take us seriously because we don't know what we're talking about, but it's not us.
This is too deep.
And this is it's the man himself talking about his life and times. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. As usual, we seek to inspire thoughts, and we hope that we've triggered 4 or 5 thoughts in your mind. We hope that we inspire discussions with people around you about some of the issues that have come up. As usual, we like to hear from you on our social media handles, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And as much as possible, we do try and respond and participate in the discussion. Otherwise, stay safe, have a lovely weekend, be good. If you can't be good at